All right, guys. All right. Just gonna check the stream real quick just to make sure the audio's coming through. Hopefully it's working. Hey, guys. Okay, it is working. All right. So, yeah, as you guys can see, we have a different layout today because it's only going to be me doing it today. It's DropThisBox speaking at this very moment. Watkins is busy. Vash is busy. They may or may not hop in the chat and converse with us as we do the show. But I'm going to be doing Vash's Stampede. But instead, today we're going to call it DropThisBox's Stampede. Not very creative, I know, but we're going to go with it anyway. But yeah, pretty much what we're going to be going over today in this very show. We're going to talk about Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso because coming fresh out of Bad Blood, we're wondering, okay, what is next for Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso on their quest to put an end to Bloodline 2.0 once and for all? And then, of course, we had another Motor City Machine Gun tease, which I'm super excited to talk about. We got some Cody, Randy, and KO drama to talk about. We saw the women's tag title match between Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, Lash Legend versus Jakara Jackson. We also had the U.S. title match between LA Knight and Carmelo Hayes. And we had Nia Jax and Tiffany. We had a little segment with them. And then we also had, Liv, Raquel, Dom get involved. And we also had a match between Nia and Naomi. And yeah, that is our show today. I want to jump into this, guys. This is more of Vash's thing. I'm not really the Stampede guy. But yeah, we're going to switch gears now. You guys should see me. I'm just going to put this right. Great. So I'm going to begin the intro for you guys. Just want to make sure I'm talking. Okay, it is working. Okay. Sorry if I keep checking, guys. I just want to make sure. I'm not like Vash. It has like 16 monitors in his room. I only have 3. But anyways, with anime in our souls and thoughts of wrestling out of control, we are just DropThisBox today. And if the other guys would hear, we would say that we are a trio of weebs who love the entertainment of professional wrestling to allow us to be the voice inside of your head as we go through the wrestling event of the evening, give our thoughts and predictions on what's to come, and provide an example inclusive to all nerds. Grab your steel chair, yell for the bell, yell for the table, holy shit, and get put through an experience like no other, brought to you by Anime Studio. This is the Weebs of the Ring podcast. Like I said, it's just me today because the boys are busy today. They left Drop by himself. I guess they didn't want to be a part of Weebs of the Ring anymore because they had better things to do. I mean, hey, all to them though, because, at the end of the day, everybody deserves a break. And when things come up, obviously, it's good to put more time into that. Obviously, I'm joking. They know that. But yeah, this was a pretty good episode of SmackDown, at least when it came to a select few things that I enjoyed, and I will get into that very shortly. But I did get a couple of answers within this show tonight. I think the main thing we will be talking about throughout this video, once we eventually get into it, is our headline story when it comes to Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso, and I'll tie in Jimmy and Solo's match into that as well. And then I might as well talk about the drama that happened between Cody, Randy, and KO afterwards, because that actually started in the middle of the women's tag title match, which was pretty funny to see. But yeah, a lot of meat and potatoes to dive into within that part of the show. Other than that, I do have a select few thoughts. Well, I have a few thoughts when it comes to other things on the show. And yeah, so honestly, I don't want to waste your guys' time. Where do we were like 19 minutes into the show. So let's talk about our headline story. I'm just going to insert that beautiful time code. Put it right there. Okay. All right. and here we go. So I want to talk about Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso. So starting off with our headline story, like I said, this was the one thing that a lot of us were getting super excited to see when we were getting into the whole entire thing. Like when we were heading into SmackDown, a lot of us were saying, okay, what is going to be happening with Roman? What's going to be happening with Jimmy? What's going to be happening with Solo and the rest of the Bloodline? Because me personally, when it came to the Bad Blood pay-per-view, did I enjoy the pay-per-view? Of course I did. Had no issues with it at all. But the main highlights out of that, to me, to be perfectly honest, would probably have to be obviously CM Punk and Drew McIntyre's Hell in a Cell match. They definitely did bring the love back to Hell in a Cell again, so thank you for CM Punk, because he did mention that during an interview that he really wants to bring the feeling of Hell in a Cell back, and he managed to achieve that. And also the stuff that went on between the Bloodline. I mean, a lot of us were saying, like, okay, what's going on with Rock now that Rock inserted himself into the picture again? And, you know, what are we going to be digging our teeth into next? So we pretty much saw the show start off where Jimmy Uso came out. So Jimmy Uso started off the show today, and he pretty much came out just like I expected him to come out, and he was saying how he missed everybody and he welcomed everyone to SmackDown. So, your typical SmackDown opening, welcoming everybody to the show. And he mentioned that he's been he mentioned that he was gone for 6 months and he was on the shelf because of Solo and obviously because of Tama Tonga as well. And it's honestly like pretty crazy to say that it's really been 6 months since we've seen Jimmy Uso on SmackDown. Like, I can almost remember that WrestleMania happened. Like, I mean, to me, it feels like a good 2 to 3 months ago, not like 6. But it just shows you like how fast, time flies by. So thinking about how he's been gone for so long, that just pretty crazy to think about. But Jimmy ends up going on saying that Solo was a fool, that he didn't have the balls to do it to his face, when obviously that Friday of SmackDown, like the SmackDown after Mania, where Solo took over as the tribal chief and he won, and you had the debut of Tama Tonga, and that's the last time we saw from Jimmy. And he mentioned that tonight we're gonna get the Big Bro versus Little Bro. So Big Bro versus Little Bro, which obviously is Jimmy and Solo, is the match set for tonight. But we'll dig into that a little bit later, because I do want to dive a little bit more into the conversation that we had with Roman Reigns and Jimmy. So Roman came out, and he does something a little bit different, because obviously the Roman Reigns that we've seen before in the past usually came out and said, "Acknowledge me." Obviously that was him as a heel. That's when he had a lot of cockiness to his character. It's still there a little bit, but obviously we had something a little bit different, where he comes out and says, instead of obviously us seeing him say "acknowledge me," he wants everybody to acknowledge Jimmy. And that definitely shows some good character progression when it comes to Roman's part, because like I just mentioned, a little while ago, well, obviously the way that we've seen Roman ever since he became the tribal chief, he was all about himself when we got into the later stages of the Bloodline story, and he ended up pushing a lot of people away. And it was nice to see that, he acknowledged Jimmy for calling the play and getting that nice reunion at Bad Blood when Jimmy came back to help Roman. But Roman ended up saying that, he's not a little brother to obviously Jimmy and Solo, so he doesn't really understand the revenge that Jimmy has for Solo. And he's also not a wise man like Paul. He says that, he's a tribal chief, and he takes what's hit, and he takes what his, and he calls his shots, and he always called his shots and delivered. In a nutshell, he's pretty much just going over like all of the things that the Bloodline managed to accomplish, ever since they first started getting started. And now after WrestleMania, we're seeing Roman Reigns about everything. If you look back at that amazing segment that Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns had, where he was pretty much telling Cody that, I have nothing on my shoulders now. You know, that just goes to show like where Roman is at, because before Roman had the whole world in his hands, almost like it was in like his palm, and he was able to grasp it, and he was able to do whatever he wanted with it. Now, you know, Jimmy's gone, not Jimmy, Jay's gone, the wise man's gone. He doesn't have Ula Fala anymore. He's not WWE champion anymore because Cody Rhodes took that from him. So this is a different direction from Roman, and this is obviously, I'm not going to get like super into this because a lot of people have said this, but this has been the Roman Reigns that a lot of us have been wanting to see many years ago, and obviously they had to turn him heel to really get him to this level, which is great because it paid off very well, and Roman Reigns obviously, you know, came a long way, and it's nice to see that progression over 10 years. It's pretty crazy to even say that. And continuing on, you know, he says that he didn't like where he was. He doesn't like where he's at right now, where he doesn't have any control. And he says when they step up in the arena, the goats are here and they are the ones. The Roman still, you know, has a little feeling to him where he feels like, you know, maybe something's a little there. But Jimmy says that they aren't, though, and the crowd ends up chanting, you know, yes, you are. But the main reason why Jimmy came across Roman is because he saw that Roman really needed help. Because if you guys paid attention to when Roman Reigns like first came back, like when he came back during SummerSlam, and he came around that when he came back and he came to that following SmackDown, you saw that Roman Reigns went in there by himself and he was attacking the Bloodline. He took out Tama Tonga. He took out Solo Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa. I know Jacob Fatu wasn't there at the time because there was like a little he was just taking some time off for a little bit. But then you had him, you know, go up against Solo. So for like the first part of it, it was just Roman fighting this war on his own. And Jimmy kept seeing Roman getting knocked down again and again and again. And then he wanted to come back because he ended up saying, you know, just like the philosophy that Cody Rhodes went over, that he saw a chief with no tribe. He had no Ula Fala around his neck. And Jimmy came back because Roman needed him, which he really did. Because one of the things that I was always wondering is like, okay, when is Jimmy gonna come back? Because obviously you could have placed Jimmy at any certain point. I realized there was something that came out from Rikishi not that long ago about Jimmy's status. I don't know if it had to do with health or anything, but you know, it's good to see Jimmy back now. But I was always wondering, you know, when Jimmy was gonna come back, because Roman can't keep fighting this battle. So obviously Jimmy had to come back to play a part. And we still have to dive a little bit deeper into, okay, how are they really going to bring the gang back together when it comes to this whole entire thing? Because we see that Jimmy ends up bringing up that he knows one person that they could possibly get some help from. And a lot of people in the crowd are chanting yeet over and over and over again. And a lot of people know that, you know, Jey Uso is the person that could definitely fit into all of this when it comes to him coming across Roman again. But obviously, you know, Roman and Jay have certain feelings for one another, which I'm happy that they acknowledge that, because I'm pretty sure if this was the old regime, they probably would have got about this and be like, oh yeah, you know, everything's all fine and dandy. But I like how we are slowly building to that Jay return to the Bloodline, which I'm happy that they're taking some time with, because I really wouldn't be a big fan if they just did it like, you know, straight off the bat, where they're like, okay, you know, we're all getting beaten down, and then let's say Jay's on SmackDown one time and they had a little talk, and then Jay decided to come out on his own and help Jimmy and Roman again. Because you got to look at where Jay has come from, because, you know, Jay wanted to obviously make it out there on his own, actually prove that he can be main event Jey Uso, and he could achieve all these different kinds of things. And obviously we saw him accomplish that recently, because he became the Intercontinental Champion when he went up against Braun Breaker on Raw a couple weeks ago and won the title. So ever since Jay left the Bloodline, he was actually able to accomplish a lot of things on his own. So I'm happy that, they're taking some time with this, because we obviously know that the main issue is that Jay and Jimmy don't get along, and Roman and Jay don't get along because of the personal issues that they have with one another. And it makes sense to build off of that, because one of my favorite parts when it comes to wrestling as a whole is long-term booking, properly booking a story, not having anything convoluted or a whole bunch of loopholes when it comes to telling a story, because obviously you have to pay attention to the product. You got to pay attention to, what's being shown in front of us. And if I was, watching a movie, and let's say I was watching a movie from the first one to the second to the third, I would want it to follow the right plot line when it comes to the sort of messages that it's trying to tell the viewer, when it comes to the sort of story that's being told. I would want them to, take their time telling that story and everything. And I'm honestly happy that, we can get that slow build. And I'm hoping, they do something with it, because a lot of us have been speculating that we could possibly get, the Bloodline versus Bloodline 2.0 at War Games. A lot of people have been speculating that all year, that Roman's going to get the gang back together and they're going to go up against Solo's new Bloodline at War Games. So it's nice that we're building a little bit to that. Maybe we'll get some little build up on Raw with it. Maybe if Jay gets interviewed backstage or somebody asks him about it, maybe we'll get a little bit more crumbs there. But it makes sense that, they're taking their time with this, and I like that direction that they're going. I like how we're having that slow build up, because obviously we are at the second week of October. So we have to start building towards War Games, and we have to make sure that we are, doing things properly now when it comes to the overall build. So I like that little segment, because it's just basically showing, like, okay, this is what we're doing with the story now. This is the sort of story that we're telling. And this dives into our main event as well, which I'll add on to this whole entire conversation, because it all flows together. Where, obviously, like I mentioned earlier, that Solo and Jimmy had a match together. And for the most part, I mean, the match was okay. It didn't really do anything special to me. The main thing I was really trying to sink my teeth into is, okay, what's going to be happening towards the end of the match? Because obviously what we saw in the beginning of the show was going to build into the later part of the show when it came to the match between Solo and Jimmy. Because, we saw a little vignette of Solo saying that, that Jimmy may be the big brother, but he's a tribal chief. Like Solo always says, I mean, it's almost like his voicemail at this point, where he's constantly saying that shit all over again. It's almost like I took my phone and just called Solo and stuff, and he has that on his voicemail if he's not picking up, that, he realized I'm the tribal chief. You gotta acknowledge me. Like, okay. I'm also wondering, because this was also brought up as well. When Roman lost a lot and he was supposed to have consequences, like Solo said, and then we saw what happened with Roman. Are we ever going to get anything like that with Solo? Because, Solo's lost quite a bit, especially in like 2 title matches. So it's like, are you ever going to get that? You ever going to get that done to you, Solo? That's the big question here. But moving on, obviously this is Jimmy's first match since WrestleMania 40. Like I said earlier, it's pretty crazy to think it's already been 6 months. But for the most part, Jimmy, just to summarize the match, because I don't want to talk about, every maneuver that was going on between, the match. I mean, we did have, we saw like a nice spinning heel kick from Solo, super kicks from Jimmy, which were known to see throughout the matches itself when it involves Jimmy, and we saw a nice lateral press on Solo. But the main thing I do want to bring up is Jimmy was just getting dominated throughout the entire match, And obviously, that was building to something because we saw Jimmy get beat up, and Roman comes out. Roman has the upper hand for a little bit. He ends up taking the Bloodline down momentarily, and then we saw that stare down between Roman and Solo, and then Roman and Jimmy ended up getting beat down, and then Jimmy pretty much reiterates what he said earlier, that we need help. So that's the next chapter of the story. So now, like we discussed, Roman isn't on his own anymore. He has Jimmy alongside him. Obviously, Paul Heyman will show up whenever we need him, but we don't need Paul Heyman, involved into like an actual match with the Bloodline at Survivor Series. I mean, if Heyman wants to do, all to him. We obviously know we're not going to get that, but now we're just building to the next chapter of the story. How are we going to convince Jay? Because if I was Jay, I would just continue what I'm doing and not even worry about Roman and Jimmy. So you're going to have to give Jay a legitimate reason to help you, or you're going to have to, lay a couple things out to really have it make sense. Because like I mentioned, you can't just have them work together off the bat like that. So you got to really figure out exactly how you're going to include Jay in here. So I like how this is the next story that we are telling when it comes to the Bloodline and what Roman is going to do next now that he has Jimmy by his side again. So when it comes to that, I really liked it, mainly because of that very reason to see, okay, this is where Roman and Jimmy are going to get Jay back again. So it's going to be a very interesting story to see exactly how he managed to do that. And to go in order with the show, I do want to talk about LA Knight versus Carmelo Hayes. Or next, I should say. And this match itself was obviously happening because, Andrade and LA Knight had a match. Obviously, down the road, we knew that LA Knight and Carmelo Hayes was going to get a match. Carmelo Hayes was very vocal last week saying that he beat AJ Styles, even though it came to a no contest. But, Melo isn't really going to believe that. But we saw that, Melo wanted a match for the U.S. title. He got it against LA Knight. And we saw Andrade hanging out by ringside, which I expected to happen because we saw shenanigans play out with LA Knight and Andrade's match with Carmelo being out there as well. So it only made sense for Andrade to sit outside of Carmelo Hayes' match as the match is going on. And there was a couple good spots within this match itself I will bring up. Like we saw like a nice pop-up power slam by LA Knight with that signature elbow drop that he normally does. We saw we saw Carmelo Hayes hitting LA Knight with a nice kick to get him off guard. Saw a nice neck breaker by LA Knight. And probably like one of my favorite things that LA Knight has been doing recently, because he just started doing this recently, not that long ago when it came to like couple of his newer matches. We saw him do that spot on the rope that I really starting to like, where it's that top rope big elbow drop where like he gets on the top rope, he bounces off of it and he hits that elbow drop. I really like when LA Knight does that. I think it looks really cool. And I believe at that very moment that LA Knight was actually going for BFT, but Carmelo was actually able to counter it, because the way that Carmelo countered it, he ended up, so to put it this way, LA Knight managed to hit the BFT. Well, he attempted to, but then Melo, as he's about to go towards the mat, he ends up holding his place. He gets back up, and he's able to catch him off guard with that. And throughout the rest of the match, it was pretty much leading up into what we were assuming the end of the match was going to be, where Carmelo Hayes ends up meeting his match with LA Knight. He ends up getting hit with a BFT, and then Andrade, just like the shenanigans that he pulled on Melo, ended up returning the favor, and he ended up telling Melo the exact same thing, that Melo needs to put the fries in the bag. And we knew that Melo and Andrade weren't done, because one of the things I do like that WWE was doing recently is the fact that they weren't really talking about like, okay, these guys are gonna have 7 matches off the bat. Like they weren't making it like a thing where they said they were. I like how it just organically came to this way when it came to Carmelo Hayes and Andrade with this set of 7 matches that they're doing, because obviously we know that they're tied now. And we have game 7 set for next Friday. So that should be fun. And the interesting thing about that is the fact that Carmelo Hayes and Andrade, once they have their 7th match, whoever wins that match is going to end up going up against LA Knight for the United States Championship. And there's a couple things I can say about that. So, obviously we know that they're tied, so there has to be a winner. And part of me thinks that it might end up turning into a triple threat, only because I could just see it going down that direction. I mean, could we get a winner and it could be Melo or Andrade? Sure, but I can just see shenanigans playing out again. We could potentially get a triple threat out of this match, since they both already had their one-on-one matches with LA Knight as it is. So it's almost like you're thinking in your head, are we really going to go back to that again? It's like, okay, Melo ends up putting down Andrade once and for all, and they move on for one another, and then Melo gets that match again, even though Melo just had that match. And if Andrade did the exact same thing, Andrade would end up getting that match again. So I'm personally thinking this is going to turn into a triple threat, only because it's just the sort of direction that I can see them going down. So we're going to have to wait and see exactly what happens next week, because next week, for the most part, is looking like a pretty good show when it comes to a couple of surprises that we're going to be getting to, which actually leads me to the next thing I do want to talk about. I did say I wanted to jump throughout the show when it came to I did say originally I wanted to structure the show based on how the show was laid out, but I feel like that segue definitely led us to this. So I want to talk about right. So I want to talk about what we saw backstage, because we ended up seeing Santos come backstage and he was talking to Nick Aldis about all the different kinds of opportunities that Carmelo Hayes is having and Andrade has had when it came to United States Championship. And we ended up seeing Nick Aldis come to him and say that, you know, he did come a little bit close to that. And Santos was just pretty much trying to talk to Nick Aldis about, you know, you handing opportunities to other people, but, you know, besides United States Championship thing, why not give Elektra some shine? Why not give Legado del Fantasma some shine? But then Nick Aldis actually came up with something very interesting where he's like, you know what? I'll give you a match next week against this select tag team. And we saw a segment later where it was like showcasing that ladder match, which was a really good match, by the way, that we saw last week. And we saw like all the tag teams arguing backstage. We saw DIY, we saw the Street Profits all arguing backstage. And a little bit later into the show, we saw the Motor City Machine Guns. Like, we saw another tease. It's pretty obvious that's who it is. And I'm honestly super excited for this. Like, I'm really curious to see exactly what they're going to be doing on the main roster, because the ongoing rumor for the longest time, I'm going to take a little sip of my coffee, but the ongoing rumor for the longest time was the fact that they were going to be an NXT. And I was talking about it with Vash, and I was talking about it with Watkins, and I was talking about it with a couple of my other friends as well. Might have actually been my other friends that I was talking to about this. But we know that Nathan Frazier and Axiom recently had a match with Austin Theory and Grayson Waller on the CW episode, you know, little specials that they have going on where they were in St. Louis. And we saw that they had that tag match. Obviously, our prediction at that very moment was the fact that, okay, the Motor City Machine Guns were going to debut right after that match and have maybe a 6-month run in NXT. It seems like they were going down that direction. But as you guys know, there's been a lot of rumors for the past couple weeks about the Lucha Bros heading to WWE because their contract was ending in AEW and they wanted to pursue a career somewhere else. But then you saw Tony Khan add time to the contract, so they can't really go anywhere at this point. And I feel like they were reeling the Lucha Bros in, which is obvious. They were luring the Lucha Bros in. They were going to debut on the main roster, and then you were going to have things played out with the Motor City Machine Guns. But now, since we had this whole predicament happen with the Lucha Bros, now plans changed in the Motor City Machine Guns. Instead of being on NXT now, they're going to be on SmackDown next week. So that's pretty much the whole picture that's being painted right there. And I'm honestly super excited for it because I've heard a lot of good things about Motor City Machine Guns. And based on the things that I've heard, they would be a good fit for the tag division. That would definitely help mold it a lot better to put it in a better place. Because if you guys have been noticing recently, it seems that Triple H is really trying to build the tag team division again when it comes to, let's give the Viking Raiders for an example. They were known as like the Viking Experience and then the Viking Raiders, etc., so on. But now they're known as the I think it's like let me look it up again. I don't know why it's slipping my tongue. I know it mentioned war. Oh my god. The War Raiders. Oh my god. The War Raiders. So yeah, you already know that whole debacle, but you obviously know Triple H has been trying to bring the not Motor City Machine Guns, the tag team division where it's supposed to be again, and we have the War Raiders coming back like they were presented in NXT all those years ago, which is really great to see. So with the Motor City Machine Guns, we're getting more into that. So I'm hoping to see a lot of things with that when it comes to, okay, are we going to really head down that direction? The tag team division is going to be, molded to where it actually matters, because we haven't had a tag team title on the line at a PLE ever since WrestleMania. It hasn't really been the main focus besides, main events at like a SmackDown or a Raw. And if I'm being completely honest, and I get why they have it, but with the Judgment Day, when it comes to Finn Balor and McDonough, and when it comes to the Bloodline on SmackDown, I mean, the main reason why they have those titles is because of a prop. They want to have a shiny little piece under their waist so they can just walk around and, brag about it and stuff like that. Like that's mainly the reason why they have those titles. I mean, if it was up to me personally, I would have stripped off of it, because when it comes to the kind of stories that's being told, especially when it comes to the Bloodline, they don't really need a title involved with it. I understand why they're doing it, because they want to have gold around their waist to make them look legitimate. Same thing with Judgment Day. But I'm hoping with the Motor City Machine Guns, we're actually heading down a proper direction when it comes to actually putting some full focus on the tag team division again, because it'd be really nice if we actually pour a lot more love into that. So the next thing I do want to talk about, honestly, is the women's tag title match, because this was actually brought up on NXT, where we saw just recently that we saw Lash legend Jakara Jackson, come in contact Bianca and Jade, and they wanted to have a match with them. And we had a little vignette with them talking about it. And then they started their match. And, I mean, for the most part, you can't really say much about it, honestly, because we saw Lash give Chelsea a big boot. We saw Jade give 2 big boots to them. So there really isn't that much to talk about this match. And this is my main issue when it comes to these the women's tag title belts. I've been very vocal. Like, if you guys notice when I'm on the podcast with the guys and I'm talking about like the women's tag titles and stuff, I don't mean not to say anything about them because I don't want to talk about them. There is legitimately nothing to really say about those titles because they just don't feel that important to me. Like, you have to give me a legitimate reason to care. I obviously know that Bianca and Jade have it on them because they're trying to do something with them, but I just grown accustomed to these tag title belts really meaning nothing, and it's just hard for me to really care about them whenever they're involved in a storyline when it comes to whoever wants to go up against them. If it's like a number one contenders match, the people win that match and then they'll end up going up against Jade and Bianca. I mean, you got to really give me something to really sink my teeth into. And the main thing I'm really waiting for is the whole debacle when it comes to, Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. Like, I'm wondering exactly, like, when we're going to start building towards the downfall of their group. Obviously, there's no signs of that. But I feel like once we start getting a story centered around those women's tag titles, that's probably going to be the story there when it comes to Bianca and Jade. And it feels like we're on a very, very slow burn with that because it definitely feels like that's what it's leading towards. Probably a WrestleMania match next year between Bianca and Jade if they are trying to go down that direction. But it's honestly just hard for me to really make any speculations or predictions when it comes to how certain things are going to be. I mean, they're facing the Sky Pirates next week. I've already seen clips for next week's show because it is taped because they are going on a UK tour. So just based off of what I've seen, I mean, isn't anything spectacular when it comes to the sort of direction that they're heading with these tag titles. So I honestly guess the best thing I can really say at this moment is, gotta give us a little something. Like, I sound like a broken record saying that, but you gotta really give us something to really sink our teeth into when it comes to this sort of thing, because I want to talk about it. I want to take some time and talk about, like, okay, this is good. I like where it's going, but you're not really giving me anything to really latch onto. And that's the thing that sucks about it, because I really want there to be something for me to latch onto and care about, but it doesn't really seem like we're heading down that direction. So I don't want to continue dragging this on as much as I've already have. So the next thing I do want to talk about is Nia Jax and Tiffany and the whole Nia versus Naomi match. We'll pretty much just combined both of them and talk about them. And when it comes to that match, excuse me. So we pretty much have Nia Jax come out and saying, as the women's champ, she has a busy agenda. I get it, she's a women's champion. Obviously, you're always going to be busy. You're not going to really have that much time to do anything. But she did end up coming out and saying that she gave Bayley credit for her work, which, Bayley is one of the pioneers when it comes to the women's division. I mean, if it wasn't for Bayley and it wasn't for Mercedes, Charlotte, Becky, etc., so on, these girls that we see in the ring today, especially when it comes to WWE, wouldn't be getting this sort of spotlight if it wasn't for them. So you do have to respect the grind that these girls do for the business. But typically what Nia says, she gives credit where credit's due, but then she also says that no one on this planet can beat her, no one in the locker room, not even Liv Morgan. And she says that she's going to end up destroying Liv at Crown Jewel, and she says she's going to become the first Crown Jewel champion, and that it's Tiffy time to cash in on Liv. And I do want to take some time and talk about the Tiffany and Nia Jax story that's currently going on, because when it comes to the women segments that we get from both sides of Raw and SmackDown. I do like what they're doing, because if I talked about this maybe 6 or 7 months ago, there really wasn't anything there. But I do like how the programs on Raw and SmackDown, we could actually take some time and actually talk about them when it comes to the story that they're being told. Because even though I really wasn't a big fan of how Rhea and Liv handled that match on, Bad Blood, I am very interested to see where Raquel falls into the Judgment Day and everything that leads up to that, which I'll, talk about my speculation with that once we dive a little bit deeper on this topic. But getting back on track with like the Nia Jax and Tiffany situation, we saw that Nia Jax just grabbed Tiffany almost like she was squeezing like a stuffed animal, or something along the lines of that, almost treating her like a rag doll and stuff, where it's like, I'm just gonna throw you around and do whatever I want with you because I'm the women's champion. I can do whatever I want. And we obviously know this is a little a bullying angle. Best way to really sum it up, where it's like Nia thinks she could tell Tiffany to do this and that, and Tiffany's just putting up with it because she's Nia's friend and she doesn't want to do anything to do her wrong. But it's eventually going to come to a point where Tiffany is going to have to get her revenge and cash in on Nia Jax, because Nia's been very vocal. She's been saying, cash on Liv, do it towards somebody that you actually have a chance to actually have a successful cash in. And when it comes to, Nia talking about all of that, I mean, if it was me personally, I probably would have cashed in at Bad Blood because it fit well with the theme of the show, and especially what we saw the previous night, where Bailey was just not Bailey, where Nia was just toying with Tiffany, and she was just, talking down to her. It made me really feel that they were actually going to pull the trigger there at that very moment and actually have Tiffany cash in on Nia Jax, because I don't know what it was. It was just the way that Tiffany's been looking at Nia lately, and the way that Tiffany has been, treated towards Nia, just almost made me feel like, okay, Tiffany, you got to come to your breaking point. Everybody does. I mean, Jay did when he kicked Roman in the face. So it's like, it's only a matter of time before you hit your breaking point where you can't really, take this shit anymore. And like I said, I would have done it at Bad Blood. I felt like it made sense. You could have built off an even bigger story with the story that you're already telling with Tiffany and Nia, which I really do appreciate that they're actually doing. But it seems like they're trying to go for that slow burn, which is okay. But at the same time, you gotta make sure you have a, solid plan in your head when it comes to the sort of direction that you want to go down with this. But it just makes me feel that I'm hoping maybe in the next month or so, Tiffany cashes in, because, I mean, I don't know why she would do it at Crown Jewel. I don't really think that would be a good moment to do it, because that's just about the Crown Jewel championship. And yes, according to the Money in the Bank contract, you could have a championship match at any time. But it's like, what are we doing with this? Because I care about the story. I want to see it go somewhere. But I'm also getting tired of like Tiffany just taking all of that. And obviously we know this is going to come to a point where she breaks out of her shell and she eventually starts doing it. But I'm just really curious to see when she's gonna make her move. But we ended up seeing Naomi come out, and she says that the only reason that Nia Jax is still champion is because of Tiffany. And Nia ends up responding back to Naomi saying that, it took you and Bailey to pin her. And Naomi even said to Nia that, she doesn't need Bailey. She doesn't need anybody else by her side to take Nia down. And then Nia wants to send a ref out to make a match. We end up getting the match. And then we end up getting Liv showing up with Dom and Raquel, obviously adding more to that match that Liv is going to have at Nia Jax at Crown Jewel. And we see that Liv was basically mocking Nia. And for the most part, I'd probably say that ever since ever since Nia, they both have a name that starts with an N. That's why I said it like that. But I would probably say, like, when it comes to Nia Jax's championship reign, I would probably have to say this is probably, in my personal opinion, the best match that we've seen Nia have so far when it comes to her as women's champion, when it comes to the people that she was going up against. I think this was a very good match. And we did get a couple good posts, and we saw like a nice hip attack that Nia did on Naomi, which, oh my god, I felt that when she was going up against her, when she was at the ring post. And we also saw like a nice drop kick to Nia on the ring post as well. We saw Nia hit a Samoan drop on Naomi before the commercial break. We saw a nice crossbody on Nia. And one of the interesting things that we did see is Tiffany went to go attack Naomi, but then it ended up backfiring, take her out, because then, you know, Naomi gets her lick back on Tiffany, and then Raquel ends up taking the briefcase. And for a brief second, I don't know why I thought this, because we did just see, you know, Tiffany get taken down in that match. I'm not really sure why my mind jumped to this, and I was like, okay, you know, this is it, you know. Tiffany, in my eyes, I don't know why I got so distracted with like Tiffany and Liv. Maybe it's because of the blonde hair, or maybe I was just a little tired, because I was getting a little bit tired when I was watching SmackDown tonight. But for some strange reason, I thought Tiffany grabbed the briefcase when Naomi was trying to get the advantage in her match towards Nia Jax. Well, not Nia Jax trying to get the advantage of the match against Naomi. For some strange reason, I thought Tiffany hit Nia with the briefcase, and then Nia went down, and then Naomi ended up winning the match for her, which, if WWE has ever shown me before, if Naomi pinned the champion, that she automatically, right off the bat, gets a title shot. Because if you pin the champion, you get a title shot. So there you go. That's Nia Jax's next contender right there. But that was just very interesting to see when it came to the result of that match. And then we also saw Rhea Ripley come out later on. She attacked Raquel, and then she goes for Liv in the ring, you know, just building off of that story. But I said this on Monday, and I'll say it again since it's relevant now. But when it comes to like this whole Crown Jewel Championship, I understand why they're doing it, because they want to have some special event going on whenever they go to Crown Jewel every single year for this title. But to me personally, I don't really care about it as much, because yes, it'll be there annually when it comes to Crown Jewel, but this is going to be just like the green belt that Braun Strowman won when it came to the Greatest Royal Rumble. The Saudi wanted to have Royal Rumble there, and they gave him one there with that. But it's just going to be like another prize that you win for the day, and then it's never going to get acknowledged again until the next following year. So I don't really care that much about Liv and Nia's match. And just to throw Cody and Gunther in there, just since we're on the topic of this, do I want to see a Cody and Gunther match? You bet your sweet ass I do. But I would want to have some proper build up with that match. I wouldn't want it to just be one of those things where they're just fighting for the sake of fighting. I mean, obviously this is what it is, and I really wish they took more time with this, because Cody and Gunther is a money-making match. I mean, to me, it's like a WrestleMania match. You got Cody Rhodes and Gunther going in the ring with one another. I mean, that's going to put a lot of eyes on that match, because those are two top dogs going in the ring with one another. I would personally want to have more build-up with that, but I'm not the booker, and I don't really make the decisions, so it's not really up to me to really say what happens within the show itself. But other than that, though, I mean, that's all I have to really say there. I'm hoping we get a little something when it comes to Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax maybe leading up to Crown Jewel or Survivor Series, hoping we get a little bit something there. But obviously, we got this build up that Nia now has to deal with Liv and Naomi now, so it's going to be quite the thing there. I mean, same thing goes with Liv. She's gonna have to deal with Nia Jax and Rhea Ripley now. So there's a lot of stuff going on with that. So the next thing I do want to talk about, and it'll probably be, where is it? Oh yeah, I do want to talk about what we saw with Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, and Cody Rhodes tonight, which I'll put this over here. It's actually perfect. I just hit this minute mark. So nice. So pretty much like one of the things that we saw like right after Bad Blood ended, because I do want to give a little story behind this just in case you guys just heard about it today, because I mean, I would be surprised if you guys didn't see it, because it was online all week when it first happened. I mean, right after Bad Blood, we saw it happen. But we've been noticing recently that, you know, Kevin Owens has been feeling a certain way towards Cody Rhodes, which all to him, because, you know, if I was Kevin Owens in that very situation, I probably would have reacted the exact same way when it came to Cody, because you got to look at KO's situation. He's been dealing with Cody Rhodes. Not Cody Rhodes. He's been dealing with Roman Reigns and the Bloodline for years now. He's been going up against them, and they cause them nothing but trouble. So it's like, you can understand why Kevin Owens feels the way he does towards Cody, because it's like, okay, you're teaming up with the enemy. You're teaming up with somebody that gave me a living hell. I mean, even with Jay, when it came to Jay going down this new direction, KO doesn't really want to associate with Jay either, because of all of the hell that he got put through, which is definitely understandable, because if you were in Jay's situation, you would understand exactly where he was coming from. So I understand why Kevin Owens feels the exact same way. I mean, I probably would have called it as it is too, because it's like, you know, it's kind of hard for you to really like discredit Kevin Owens when it comes to the sort of decision that he made on Cody Rhodes, because there's a lot of anger and frustration building up, and for only so long you can hold that in before it eventually leads to something. And obviously it led to something, because we ended up seeing Kevin Owens turn heel on Cody Rhodes and just attack him outside of his bus. And they were about to get into a little scruffle today, because the way that this actually opened up, which was actually pretty funny, where it pretty much showed up initially, where we had the women's tag title match. And I wanted to save this for a different topic of discussion. I didn't want to blend it all together. But we saw that, you know, Lash and Jakara were coming out for the match against Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. And we saw that KO interrupted him. And then he was like, okay, you want to know why I turned on Cody Rhodes? You want to know why I did this and that? His mic got cut off. He grabbed the headset. And then that's when Cody Rhodes ended up coming out. And they're about to get into a little scruffle with one another. And then Randy comes out to break it up. He tries to calm down Cody. And then Randy tries to hold KO back once he gets in the ring with him, saying that, okay, you know what, Cody? I'm going to handle this. I'm going to take care of the entire situation at hand. And then we saw KO elbow Randy, and then Randy ended up elbowing him in return, and KO ended up walking away in shock. He's like, oh my God, you know, you attacked me at this very moment. I thought we were bros. I thought we were RKO. I mean, you know, what's going on here? Is this the end of RKO? I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, I don't see why we continue after that, because now both of these guys are going to be at each other's throats once they see each other again, which I'm assuming that's probably the next program that they're going to put each other into. Maybe it's going to be a Crown Jewel, who knows, a match between Randy Orton and Kevin Owens. But obviously now we know that KO is like, you know what, fuck Randy, fuck Cody, I'm just going to do things my own way. And like I said, I'm not against KO from doing this, because it was a long time coming. We knew that KO was going to go down this direction eventually when it comes to the sort of thing that he wants to do, when it comes to, you know, actually being, being aware of your surroundings when it comes to certain things. Because one thing that I can really appreciate about KO is that regardless if you're his friend or not, if you cross a line and you do anything any sort of way, there's going to be consequences with that. And KO always sticks to his guns. He always makes the decisions that he feels benefits him. And that's something that I can really appreciate with his character. And adding on top of that, you know, we saw Randy come across Cody before Cody left for the night, you know, telling him to calm down, and Aldis and Nick Aldis wanted Cody to focus on what was going on, and Randy said he'll fix this. And funny that Nick Aldis made a little comment saying that, Randy, look at you, you know, you're the voice of reason, because out of all the years that we've seen Randy Orton, when have we ever seen him as the voice of reason? Like, that sort of thing does not exist with Randy Orton. Like, you would never expect anything like that to come out of Randy's character at all. So that's pretty interesting. And then we see KO later that night. We got a little segment where we ended up seeing KO stomping Randy outside the arena, saying, "Oh, you're gonna pick side now, Randy. You're gonna do this. You're gonna do that." So now KO is completely on his own. No Cody Rhodes, no Randy, and I have a few thoughts on this. I could be stupid for thinking this, but this is where this is the direction I feel like they're going down with this. But could this possibly be a part of Randy's big plan? Because we obviously know over the years since we've seen Randy, he's been this big snake. He's been making a lot of these moves behind the scenes, and he's trying to pull the strings when it comes to when it comes to certain things he wants to be done. So what if this was Randy's way of just tearing everybody apart, only to catch Cody off guard at that moment, and then just strike when the iron's hot, where we get that RKO coming out of nowhere where we least expect it. Like, we know, like the famous saying, you know, Randy hits a RKO out of nowhere, like you never see it coming. What if that's building to that? Because when it comes to Randy, you know, obviously you would think he would be upset with the Bloodline as well, considering that they took him out for, you know, 16 to 18 months. So it's like, you know, wouldn't you expect Randy to be upset with Cody as well, considering that Cody is siding with Roman, he's working alongside him? Wouldn't you expect Randy to feel a certain way about that, considering, you know, the kind of stuff that the Bloodline put him through? I mean, it's a good thing to talk about. So what if this is a part of, like, Randy's master plan, where he feels like what he's doing, you know, he's tearing Cody and KO's relationship apart. He's tearing he's tearing his relationship with KO apart. What if this is, you know, Randy's bigger plan, just to get into Cody's head and just notice all these different kinds of problems heading his way? Because if you look at Cody Rhodes right now, he has a lot on his plate, almost like he has a Thanksgiving dinner on his own, where we see that, you know, Cody is dealing with The Rock, because obviously him and The Rock aren't done, especially what we saw towards the end of WrestleMania last year and that following Raw, saying that, you know, don't break my heart ever again, and Rock wanting to hold the championship. You guys probably remember that was a little awkward thing we got there between Rock and Cody, but that's besides the point. But we obviously know Cody's dealing at Rock now. Obviously him and Roman have unfinished business that they'll get to eventually. So now we have the KO situation. Now we have a potential Randy Orton situation. Now we have Gunther at Crown Jewel when they go up against one another. I mean, this boy Cody, he has the turkey, the stuffing, the mashed potatoes, the biscuits, anything you can name of on a Thanksgiving dinner, the apple pie, pumpkin pie, whatever the case may be. Cody has the full Thanksgiving plate right now. sitting at his table, and he just has a lot of people coming at his throat. And you would think it would make sense considering, you know, what he recently did, siding with the Bloodline, a group that's been giving people a lot of shit for years on end, ever since forming with them. And Cody's supposed to be looked at as a locker room leader, you know, standing up against something like that. But he wanted to, but him and Roman decided to work alongside one another when it came to this tag match at Bad Blood that we got. So this just opens up the door for like a lot of different things that just coming at Cody all at once. And what if this, hypothetically, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but what if this possibly leads Cody down the direction where he loses everything, where it's like he loses all the friends that were around him because he's close, because of the kind of decisions that he made? And what if he, you know, loses that title because of the actions that he made that led him down this direction, because now he's at a point where nobody's going to want to be by his side because he decided to work with the enemy. So what if, you know, Cody's stuck in a rabbit hole now? What if Cody is just in a place where he doesn't know how to get out of? Like, that's the question to ask there, that I am very interested to see what we're going to be going down, because one of the things that a lot of people were asking on SmackDown is, when are we going to get more stories? When is there going to be a lot more things to, my favorite thing to say, sink our teeth into when it comes to the whole SmackDown program that we see every Friday? Is there going to be any other stories coming out of it? I just named all the stories there. Cody and Randy, Cody and KO, Cody and Roman, Cody and The Rock, you know, a lot of stuff that we're going to see, you know, Cody go down. A lot of people wanted to see, you know, more things for Cody, you know, more interesting feuds for Cody when it involves story. And got a lot that I just mentioned there. So I feel like this is a good thing. And I am very curious to see exactly where this is going to go down. So we're going to have to wait and see with that. But judging on what I'm seeing so far, now we have a whole issue with Cody and Randy against KO, because I would, unless they want to have, actually, you know, probably the best thing to really do at this moment is probably have Cody just focus on Gunther, and then you could have a little program between Randy and KO, and, you know, start building that heel KO. Maybe KO gets Cody at Survivor Series or something along the lines of that. I don't really know, but maybe we're getting ourselves into a Randy and KO problem, a KO program, which would be really interesting to see. But those are my overall thoughts on that. I mean, I definitely wanted to take some time and talk about that, because that was something that I definitely wanted to take some time and talk about, because when it comes to SmackDown, I mean, the main things I always look forward to is like, okay, what's happening with the Bloodline? What's happening with Cody? Got a lot of stuff going on there, which is really nice to see. And I'm going to see if there's any other things to really talk about, because I think I pretty much talked about everything here. Yeah. So I pretty much did talk about everything here. So we are going to be getting to my SmackDown overall thoughts. So here, you know what? I'm gonna make this 119. Okay. So SmackDown overall thoughts. What did I think of SmackDown? So when it comes to SmackDown, like I thought the show was pretty good. I wouldn't say it was like amazing or anything, but I felt like it did what it needed to do when it was building up to the things that we really care about when it comes to Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. Like, probably one of the things I really love the most about the show was Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso getting things fleshed out with that story, seeing exactly what sort of direction that Roman goes down next, because, you know, like I mentioned before, we got to see exactly how Jay is going to get inserted into the story, because Jay is the next stop. You got Roman, you got Jimmy. Obviously, you want to get the OG bloodline together. I'm not entirely sure if Sami Zayn is gonna get involved any shape or any way. But we are definitely heading down that direction to get the OG Bloodline back together again, because that's what it definitely felt like when I was watching this segment. It definitely felt like an OG Bloodline segment where we were seeing them like form together for the very first time. So that's where I took from that. So I'm very interested to see, what's going to be going on with Jay with that, like I discussed. I'm wondering exactly like when Rock is going to come back. I didn't talk too much about Rock, so I guess I will talk about Rock right here when it comes to my overall thoughts. I am very curious to see exactly where Rock is going to fall into this, because there was a report that came out where it said that Rock was supposed to be coming back sometime this fall. Obviously, he did, because he came back at Bad Blood. Okay, when is Rock going to insert himself into the Bloodline story again? Where does Rock fall under all of this? If you guys saw a clip that formed online, we saw that Solo Sikoa was saying it's all part of the plan, where they were in the crowd and the Rock came out. So obviously, the Rock could be pulling the strings, which I'm pretty sure he is. I mean, it's pretty apparent if you watch the show, you know what's going on. So obviously, Rock isn't really happy with everything that's going on. Obviously, he appointed Solo to be the tribal chief, and here we are now with everything that's coming together at this very point. So I'm very interested to see, what Rock's going to say when he comes back. What is he going to say to Roman? What is he going to say to Cody? Because that's where it really comes down to. And especially if you're talking about like WrestleMania plans too. Like The Rock definitely has a big say in that. When it comes to, okay, what does Rock want to do at WrestleMania? Does he want to have Cody on a one-on-one match? Does he want to have Roman? Does he want to have the both of them? What does Rock want to do? And obviously, with him coming back, we get a better indication of exactly, okay, this is what Rock wants to do now. So hopefully, maybe sometime this month, maybe after Crown Jewel, maybe leading up to Survivor Series, I'm just hoping we get some sort of thing with Rock before the end of the year. I'm pretty sure he'll come back before the end of the year, but I'm hoping we get something with Rock, because now with Rock back into the story, it's going to make things a lot more interesting. So, I mean, that was the best part of the television leading up to WrestleMania, was seeing everything that the Rock was leading up to, because funny enough, it felt like more like a Cody versus Rock match building up to for the WWE title, instead of Cody versus Roman, because Roman kind of felt like a third wheel during that whole entire build-up. It's like Roman was like a little broed in that moment with Rock. But hopefully we get some insight on that soon. When it comes to the Motor City Machine Guns, I am very excited about that. I've heard nothing but great things. I don't want to lie to you guys and say that I followed their career all the way through, because I haven't, but I've heard nothing but great things about them. A lot of people are excited to see them. They're coming next week. They're going to fight Legado del Fantasma. Was it confirmed? No, but based on that tease saying next week, and based on the teasers that we're getting, it makes sense that we are heading down that direction. I am hoping the music is good. I'm hoping Def Rebel didn't I'm not a Def Rebel guy, just like you guys. I think a lot of the songs that they do aren't really that good. So hoping they have a banger song, good presentation and everything. Hopefully they're treated not like a joke, but actually being treated seriously, because I would absolutely love to see them really build the tag division around them and actually make it feel important again, because that's one of the things I've been missing the most when it comes to, tag team title matches. I mean, we got a banger last week. I loved that match. I thought it was really good. But I want to see it consistent throughout the week. Actually put some focus on it. Get it back on some PLEs and stuff. That'd be really nice to see. Cody, Randy, KO. I'm loving all the drama that's going on between the both of them. And I also like how Cody and Roman are like separate from one another now. So, okay, Cody's not factored into the Bloodline story at this very moment. Okay, now Roman and Jimmy and Solo and everybody else can focus on whatever issues they have there when it comes to that story. So now you have two pretty big stories in SmackDown now. So I like how we have that whole drama of Cody, KO, and Randy, like I mentioned. So we'll see where that leads into next week. Is Randy going to come out, call out KO? Or are we going to have like, a proper segment where KO just lets everything out and just says everything, even though we know why KO did what he did. Are we going to get a more of an explanation when it comes to all of that next week? So I am definitely looking forward to that. Women's tag title match, not really much to say about that. I'm just waiting to see if things take off with Bianca and Jade when it comes to any inner struggles that they eventually have, or just drama that breaks out between the both of them. LA Knight versus Carmelo Hayes is a pretty good match, and we're gonna get game 7 next week where they're both tied 3-3. We're gonna get that one final match. Is Carmelo gonna come up on top? Is Andrade gonna come out on top, or is it gonna end up turning into a triple threat? We're gonna have to wait and see. And when it comes to Nia Jax and Tiffany, I mean, Tiffany, when are you going to cash in that Money in the Bank? Are you going to cash it in before Crown Jewel? You're going to cash it in at Crown Jewel, Survivor Series? What's really going on here? There's a part of me thinking that maybe they want to wait a little bit later until, Charlotte Flair comes back. I heard some people bring that up. Maybe that's one of the reasons why they're waiting to insert Charlotte Flair into the picture. Because, we have Queen Nia and we have the Queen Charlotte, so it only makes sense for them to head down that direction eventually. But yeah, Tiffany, I mean, when are you going to cash in that? I mean, if I were you, I would do it when the opportunity opens up again so you can get that revenge on Nia, because Nia has been causing you nothing but a lot of trouble. So you eventually have to get your revenge on her. So hopefully when an opening comes up, you can do it. But as of right now, we know that Naomi is front in line when it comes to Nia Jax's next challenger, since she did pin Nia Jax when it comes to Liv Morgan taking part in that win that she had, because she ended up costing her the match. And other than that, guys, that's all I have to say. So when it comes to my overall thoughts, so if you guys have anything you want to say when it comes to your SmackDown overall thoughts, like when it comes to anything that came out of the show, when it comes to any of the matches that we went over, like when it comes to Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso, when it comes to Solo and Jimmy's match, or the Motor City Machine Guns, anything you want to say about them, Cody, KO, Randy, the women's tag title match, like anything in general that I talked about that you want to leave your thoughts on, any theories or anything you want to get off your mind, be sure to let me know down below, because I would absolutely love to hear it. So, moving on. So, I want to thank you guys for taking your time out of your day, or I should say, out of your night, or whatever you guys come across this, to listen to the Weebs of the Ring podcast. Because if you enjoyed what we had to say, why not do exactly what we always say? Like when Vash is here, why not, come across us on social media? Because we are known as Anime We Studio on all social platforms. Just remember that's we with a 3. And also use the hashtag Weebs of the Ring to interact with us, anything regarding wrestling before, during, or after our shows. And feedback is always appreciated, as we are nothing without you tuning in. And when it comes to this channel itself, I know you guys are probably it's a different environment, because we used to always stream in Anime We Studio, but me and Vash and the rest of the guys were talking about, coming over to this channel and, starting it new, because we had a lot of different plans coming for Weebs of the Ring soon. I mean, if you want me to let you guys know, besides our typical show coverages when it comes to Raw and SmackDown, we also had Grappling of the Week. We're going to make that into a news-related thing on here. We're going to try to see if we can have some interviews with other wrestlers, if we ever have the chance to contact with them. So we have a lot of good things coming to this channel, so I really do hope you guys enjoy the content that we have today. I apologize if I do sound a little off today. I don't know why. I'm coming up with a cold. I normally get like this during spring season, but maybe I'm getting a cold later in the year because winter's coming up. And this is also the first time I'm doing the show by myself. I don't mind doing it again. I had a lot of fun doing it. But anyways, guys, Weebs of the Ring is presented by Anime We Studio, and I want to thank Thanks to our production team of Vash, Watkins, and me, DropThisBox, as well as Roman Jokester, as well as special thanks to JB and Abe. And thank you guys for joining us. And remember, no stunt grannies were harmed in the recording of this podcast. Have a good night, everybody. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.